Hi, my name is Michael Scaff. I'm a web developer and I kind of gamble as a hobby. I'll just jump into some terminology here. Um, so when it comes to sports betting, there are multiple different ways to place a bet. You have something called the spread and the money line and then over-unders. Those are going to be your three most popular bets. The spread is essentially handicapping the sport. So let's just say the Cleveland Cavaliers are minus 2.5 to win a game. That is essentially saying that the Cavaliers at the end of the game, you take their final score and subtract 2.5 points from that final score. If they are still ahead, then they would that bet would win. So you see a minus, you would typically see a minus or a plus. When you see a plus sign, that means they are an underdog, um, or not favored to win. So if the Cavaliers was plus 2.5, you would take that final score and add 2.5 points. So that's where the handicapping aspect comes into play because you're essentially giving them that 2.5 point lead to make the game more even. So essentially, when it comes down to betting on the sport, you're essentially saying that the spread is to make the game more even and to see which team can beat that line. Now when it comes to the money line bet, it is a way to just call out a pure winner. There are different odds associated to that, which I'll get into here in a little bit, because I think odds and the way money flow works is probably the most confusing way of sports betting. But the money line bet is mostly just picking a pure winner. You're just saying, hey, I want the Cavaliers to win outright. That's it. Now, the other type of bet is the over under. And I think it is the easiest to understand because it is separate from the the way the teams do anything, and it's typically just total points added up. That number you're trying to go over it or under it, depending on what you pick. So if the total over under for the game is 200 points in a Cleveland Cavaliers game, you are trying to predict if the game points will go over 200 or stay under 200. And that's quite literally it. So if the Cleveland Cavaliers are, let's say, 98, they have 98 points in a game, and they're playing the Miami Heat, and they only scored 2 points, let's just say for the entire game, that's 200. So that would just equal out to a push, which you would just get your original bet back. Now, if they went over the 200 and you bet on the over 200, your bet would win because you chose over 200 total points. I think those are probably the three biggest bets. So the parlay is an interesting bet. Um, Essentially what a parlay is you're taking two or more bets, tying them together to be one bet, but each part of that bet has to trigger in order for it to cash out. So the reason why all of these major sports books, not just in Ohio, but across the world, want you to place a parlay is because it has that aspect of I can wager a low amount to win a lot. I've seen people who make 10 leg parlays, which means there's just 10 individual bets. Each of them have to win before you win that parlay. And wager $3, but if they all hit, you're gonna win 330. I think that is probably one of the bigger issues I see in sports betting, is that aspect of I can bet a little to win a lot. So one thing that we use a lot in my group of friends is the term a unit. A unit is quite literally a measurement unit, but we just don't have a term for it, so we just call it a unit. So what we do in sports betting is you say how much you're betting in the term a unit. So if I'm betting $10 on a game, I can equate that to 1 unit. So that means I'm betting typically 1 unit on every single game. The reason why we do this is to bring a level playing field to talking to a lot of sports bettors professionally or recreationally, because it gets toxic if you're talking to someone who's betting $200-300 a game, but then you're just a casual bettor and you're betting $5-10 on a game just for the excitement. So to say, hey, I have 1 unit on a game, and then my buddy's got $200 on a game, but it was only saying 1 unit, you both are on that same level playing field of, unit sizes. So it really doesn't matter how much you're betting at that point. It's just we're all on the same level. It doesn't matter what the money is. So when you look at a sports book, this is typically how it'll be laid out. You'll see your teams, the date, time, then the spread, your money line bet or to win, and then the over under total. And I'll just recap these real quick. So this spread here means that at the end of the game, the Miami Heat, if you take their final score and add 5.5 points and they're still ahead, you would win. Vice versa for the Knicks here. You take the Knicks final score, subtract 5.5 points, and if they're still ahead, you would win your bet. So right here next to the spread is what we call the odds to win. The odds to win is a way for the book or bookie or the house to take a profit always on a bet. Some places call it the vig or the juice. The juice is a good term, because usually it'll be like, hey, this bet's a little juicy, but I'm gonna take it anyways. That just means that the amount that you bet on a team, the house will take some out just to take a profit. So essentially, this is one issue that I feel like a lot of sports bettors don't see or understand, is same with traditional gambling in a casino, the house will always win, no matter what. So this saying right here, this minus 110 is really confusing, but they're all built out to be $100 bets. So minus 110 here says that if you bet $110, you will win 100 and get that back as profit. So if I bet $110 and it wins, I will be getting 210 back. I get my original 110, then a profit of $100. So 210 back. I have a calculator too on this site that I will send or show here shortly to show how the math of betting odds works, because it's super confusing. So then right here is a good example of odds that are bigger. So to place a bet to win, the odds most likely will be way bigger than just the spread. Reason being is like this Miami Heat plus 200 is obviously bigger than minus 110. So the reason why they do that is because you're not getting points. You're not adding or subtracting points from your team's score at the end of the game. This is just a straight up win. So it's going to be harder to do. So if I was to bet on the Heat here, it's harder to do that because I'm not getting 5.5 points anymore. I'm not adding 5.5 points at the end of their game. So the plus 200 means that for every $100 you wager, you're going to get 200 back. So it's a 2-to-1 bet. So if you were to bet $100 on this, you would actually see that you would get $200 in profits back. So, and your original, so you would get 300 back. Now with a minus 240 bet, it's tricky. I don't know what the math would be off the top of my head, but if I was to bet $100 here, you would only win a profit of 41.67. Because technically, betting that team to win is easier than taking that final score and subtracting 5.5 points. So that's how the house can like try to make money off of you. So it's an interesting topic because let's say I want to take the Heat and then a buddy wants to take the Knicks here. And ideally, the house would want this minus 240 to win because they're paying out less money, but they're making that money from my 200 bet. So then you can see the mathematical difference of almost a $51 profit that goes straight to the book. Again, the over-under here, it's the final score for both teams added up that is given your total here. So 208 on this game. And you're essentially just predicting if it goes over or under that score. So this right here is a betting odds calculator. It'll do the math for you to show you how odds work. This betting calculator will also show how much you'll win or lose in the payout, but also the implied odds that the team will win that bet. So it's a really interesting thing. So if we have a bet amount here of $10, and let's say the odds are minus 110, which is very standard. Minus 110 is probably the most common odds that are always shown. So this is right here, the implied odds. This means that this bet has a 52.38% chance to win. And then it also does the math for you here too. So with minus 110 on a $10 bet, you'd be winning $9.09. But then you would actually get back a total of $19.09 because you would get the $9 and your original bet back. So in the Heat example from earlier, if the Knicks are minus 245 here, we can go back to the calculator and put minus 245. They're actually saying that that bet will win 71% of the time. But you can also see how little money you're actually getting back. For a $10 bet, you're only making a $4 profit, with the payout is $14.08. Now, if we go back and plug in the other team at 205 plus 205, you can actually see how the math worked out, because the other way it was 71% to win, but now we see a 32, almost a 33% chance to win. But because the way the odds are written, you're making a lot more based on your original wager. So here I'm betting $10 and I'm going to win 205 with a payout of $30. So to the $20 and my original 10 back. When it comes to excitement, or even like, we actually make jokes in my friends group about the dopamine, right? Because everything is revolving around the dopamine. You're not doing this if it isn't fun, or you're not getting a rush from it. Same with even like amusement parks. So the reason why I enjoy sports betting over traditional casino gambling is because I can place a very small wager on something and I get sucked into it. Like, I don't know soccer, but I could put $10 on a soccer game and I instantly know everything about the sport, and I'm going all in for the sport. Um, when it comes to traditional gaming at a casino, like, I feel like it is less worth your money long term, I feel like. Like, you can sit down at a blackjack table, within literally 2-3 minutes, you might be down $100. But with sports, I feel like I can place even a small amount of $5 and I'm getting 3-4 hours of entertainment based on how long that game is going. Now that could be both a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is that with sports betting, you can actually bet on the game in the middle of the game. So there's an actual live betting aspect. So like in the middle of a basketball game, I can check what the live spread is at any time I want and bet it. So that is probably one of the biggest things that I see my friends getting tied up on, is like chasing their losses. Like, they know a game is going to lose, but then they just kind of hope that it'll just come back. So then they start chasing these lines, and then at the end of the game, they're down, a super amount of money, and they're all messed up or upset at the end of the day. I'd say that's probably one of the most dangerous things in sports betting, is the live betting. Another aspect towards like that dopamine release, or like getting excited with stuff like this, are those parlay bets. Because parlay bets can go across any sport. So like, I have seen people who place NFL football bets, but then also a hockey bet and a bet on basketball. And then all of a sudden, for a really small amount of money, you're cheering for 3 different sports at the same time. Which can be exciting, but also very depressing if your parlay doesn't hit, because you have to have all 3 of those bets win in order for it to pay out. While in the Sportsbook app, there is an actual button to just start playing blackjack right on your screen, right then and there, for the same amount of money that you have in your Sportsbook app. I mean, you can see it right here on my screen. I could just click this right here and boom, I'm playing blackjack. Which is kind of a crazy concept and very predatory. And like I said, this is all for real money right here, right now. One other thing that goes along with roping customers in is loyalty points. A lot of casinos have some sort of point factor that you get per bet. I've seen DraftKings have what they call dynasty rewards, and every bet that you make, you get a certain amount of these. They call them crowns, which is just like a point, like a Kroger Plus card point or anything like that. The more you play, the more that you get of these. And you can level up your status with casinos or the sports book that will unlock more benefits for you in the long run. But also it's a way to keep the customer engaged, keep playing, keep gambling. The more you bet, the more of the points you get. And then those points you can turn into like free bets, or even things like golf clubs or trips or other physical things that have nothing to do with sports betting. I've seen people actually cash out their points for like MacBooks and stuff like that. But that's how they rope you in, right? Like, hey, the more you play, the more you get status or VIP status or free things or trips or what have you. And I think that's one aspect that I could see being pretty toxic in mindset. I mean, even I've been doing this for so long now that sometimes I even get sucked into it of just like, hey, I just need to bet like $3 or $4 more a day just to get this status at the end of the year, which could be insanely toxic. So this was a sports book promo. All of these sports books have promos in some way for new people to sign up. And I took this screen cap because I was like, this is probably one of the most wild ones that I've ever seen. So they were promoting, you deposit $10, you bet $10, and if it wins, they'll give you $125 in bonus bets. Now, there's two things here that was really interesting to me. The one aspect that saw on this is that bet has to win. If it doesn't win, you're not getting that 125 offer. And this was different than most other sports books that I've seen. Some other sports books say, bet $10. If it loses, we'll give you bonus money. So this one was interesting as well because after I read the terms here, you don't get $125 in bonus bets instantly. They're actually giving you 5 $25 bonus bets every week until you get the 125. So after your first bet, you're getting a $25 bet, bonus bet. 7 days after that same bet, you'll get another 25. And this is one of those toxic loops of, hey, I have to keep playing to get free money. And I took this screen cap because I was like, I've never seen anything like that. And it's one of those insanely toxic bonus offers because now an individual, if they are addicted to gambling or chasing that feel, they're forcing you to keep this app on your phone for almost a month, right? Because every 7 days you're getting a drip feed of $25 for free. Another offer that I've seen is bet insurance. They call it bet insurance. So if you were to place a bet, let's say $100 on something, and it loses, they call it bet insurance. And essentially what they do is they'll just give you a $100 free bet, only if it loses. Now, the interesting concept to that is with that calculator I was showing earlier, if you bet $100 and it wins, you're making a profit of $90. So you're getting that 190 back. But with the bet insurance, you're getting a $100 wager back as a free bet that you can place. So if you lose your first bet and get that $100 free bet and place that bet again and it wins, you're only getting $90 back. You're not getting your 190 back. So right there it's interesting because you put in $100, you lose, they're giving you a $100 bonus bet, it wins, you're getting 90 back. So you're down $10 already. And that's a really interesting way that these sports books will just rope you in. So the site actually has an offers page here that shows all of these offers from all these other sports books. And like some of these are they're all the same way to like hook people. Yeah, here's this one right here. Bet up to $1,250 on any NBA playoffs game and get bonus bets back. So that's exactly what I was saying is they make a number look big to you. You lose that, but then you're like, "Oh, it's okay because I have that insurance behind me that I'll get a free bet." But then you have to wager that $1,250 bet as a single bet. It's not broken up. So then you place that free bet and you might win it, but you're going to still be down because of the way that those odds are built. One thing that I know that a lot of sports books do have is self-exclusion and betting limits. So you can go into a sports book app, and when you sign up, it'll actually say, hey, do you want to put self-exclusions or betting limits set up? And that's an area that I feel like most people should be taking advantage of, because you can set it up and say, I don't want to wager any more than $20 a game. And if you go and put $25 in, it'll literally say you cannot place this bet. There's also self-exclusions, which is just making it so that you can't even log into the app for X amount of days that you pick. And that's also an interesting way to promote healthy gaming. My biggest advice, and I'm sure your other counselors have heard it, is never wager more than you can afford to lose. If I go into a casino, I take money that I know will be gone. I expect to walk out of the casino with $0 that I came in with. Now, when it comes to sports betting, I will say the exact same thing. Never put money in your account that you don't expect to lose. If you win a bet and you're happy with it, then something that I always do is instantly withdraw. Keep withdrawing money and cycling that money out. And if you still want to keep gaming, keep just a little bit in there and let it build up. And then if you're down, if you run out of money, at least you have a backup account that you were withdrawing from. So now you can be like, oh, I lost my $20 bet, but I have another account that I withdrew from that has my winnings from the other day. And like I constantly withdraw. Now, that can be a good thing, bad thing. There's been times where I withdraw so much that I don't have like enough to like play with or whatever, but at least I know I'm doing it safely. I'm not putting more money in than I can afford to lose. And then if it loses, I'm not, oh no, where's all my money, right? So personally what I did is I opened up a new checking account with my bank, and I have all of my sports books tied to that one bank account, and then I'm constantly withdrawing and then depositing only through that one checking account. Another thing that I do is I have a set unit. We were talking about units earlier. So that set dollar amount is the same dollar amount I use on every single bet. I never go over, I never go under. Well, I do go under because it's a confidence thing. If I don't feel like, if I'm a little shaky, if I think it may not be a great bet, I'll bet less, right? Betting less is always better than betting a lot more or your same unit. So what I do is I have a half a unit, which is half the same dollar amount that I normally bet with. So if I think something's a little shaky, I'll just bet less. And then if it hits, you're like, hey, cool. But if it doesn't, then you have another half a unit that you can wager on something else. One thing I will say is if you're placing bets, and you start to get worried, or you have that feeling like this can't lose, you are 100% betting way too much. There's very rarely have I ever felt that, but like I've seen friends who were like getting worked up in the middle of games, and then I asked them how much they were betting, and they were like, too much. So I guess the trick is to like always think you're gonna lose. That's what I always have in my head, 100%. If I walk into a casino or if I open up my sportsbook app, however much money I'm putting on a game, I know that I'm gonna come out with zero. But if it wins, then you're like, hey, cool, great. So I think that's really one of the biggest things is never wager more than you can afford to lose. I have seen where you can go on hot streaks, right? You're winning 5, 6 bets in a row, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, this is great. Then what I see a lot in my circle is, well, now that I'm up, I'll gamble with the house money and then increase how much you're betting to like ride the wave is what we call, right? You have your dips and valleys, ride the wave. So it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. I'm increasing my wagers, and then all of a sudden you lose 2, 3, 4 in a row, and you're back to zero, or you're back to where you began. I have seen people who were like, hey, like I have like a whole month of math that shows that I'm a profitable bettor. So why not? Like why can't I just quit my job or do this, or even just a side hustle like, hey, I can put 150 bucks on a game every day. If it hits, then I'm making $90 a day. But they are riding that wave again. Like it will almost never work out. That's why like when it comes to emotions with betting, we always say like winning never feels as good as it should. Like it's hard to explain. Like you can win and it feels like it's never enough, no matter how much you are wagering. But you lose a single bet and it's the worst feeling ever made. Um, and that's one of the hard things to even shake off just mentally of like I can have a winning streak of 7 days in a row, but I lose one bet and it feels terrible. It feels worse than winning 7 days in a row. Yeah, I think that comes down to my methodology of constantly withdrawing and keeping money in the account that I'm willing to like game and play with, or setting that unit. Because when you set that unit in your head, you're already like, this is all that I want to place. Like fighting that mental greed level of like, well, if I bet more, I would have. And my advice to that is if you are winning, like keep withdrawing and building that bankroll out and then reevaluate after a while. Like I would probably give it 2, 3 months and look at that bank account and see how much you have built up or not built up, and just reevaluate. Be like, is this something that I want to do as an entertainment, or is it constantly costing me money? Because at that point, like as with anything, like even just video games, right? Like if I'm sitting around playing video games all day and I'm not accomplishing anything in life because I'm just addicted to my video games, at what point is it just not doing anything for you? So I would say that, like, check your bank account, constantly withdraw, take a look, and then reevaluate. Like, hey, can I afford to maybe increase my unit amount, maybe $5, $10, just so that I feel like I'm gambling more, but I'm looking at my bank account, I'm like, I can afford this. Another thing that I will say too is like make your unit so that if you have 10 to 15 bad bets in a row, you're not at zero. if that makes sense. Some places say a bet should be 1% of your bankroll. So if you have $100, in theory, you should be really only betting $1, which is a great concept, I feel like. Because then you can lose almost 100 bets in a row and you're not, I mean, you still get the fun out of it or lack thereof, depending on how they end up. But then you're also like doing it a lot, right? But you're not losing $100 on one single bet. You can get that entertainment, but then you can also be like, hey, like, look how much I've been doing without risking so much in one bet.
You can learn more about gaming and gambling through resources such as Change the Game Ohio. Here you'll discover tips on how you can find a healthy balance as you play.